Good day, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eric Wilkerson. I'm the outgoing president of the board for Chimakita Park Mutual Water Company. I've been volunteering my time for a couple years on the board, and one of the things I've noticed is that when the board doesn't do a great job of communicating with the community, rumors and sort of misunderstandings can flourish. So, to help mitigate that this year, I wanted to put together this brief presentation to give you all a sense of what's being proposed this year and why. It's my hope that this recording is going to provide some clarity on issues the community will be voting on June 1st. There's a lot on the agenda, and I want to make sure everyone has an understanding of why certain things are being proposed and what a yay or nay vote may mean. One thing I want to say right up front is that you all have the power to vote yay or nay on any of these proposals. The board is proposing what it thinks is necessary to have a financially viable water company going into the future. That said, if the proposed changes don't work for you, your family, or your budget, vote no. It's as simple as that. The proposed changes are being voted on individually, so you're not being asked to accept all the changes in one vote. Vote for what works for you, and vote for what works for your family. Vote no for what does not. So why am I saying this? The last board meeting, a few community members showed up and made statements that many of your volunteer board felt were both hyperbolic and borderline disrespectful. I respectfully ask that people refrain from this behavior at the annual meeting. We're here to prevent the facts, answer questions at the end, and facilitate the vote. Many of us have served as board members at significant cost in terms of time, finances, and our energy. The minimum we request in return is for members to refrain from ad hominem arguments, insults, etc. Our goal is to provide full transparency so you, the community members, and shareholders of the company can clearly understand and make an informed decision. Where possible, we'll provide links to any references either in this presentation or a separate email. In fact, most of the documents that people may want to look at have already been provided in the annual meeting packet that was sent out via email or given to community members who requested hard copies. Moreover, the board meets monthly, and we send out our information monthly via email with links, and we also send out hard copies for those who request them. And many of the topics that we are going to discuss this year at the annual meeting have been discussed at length for hours and for several months. So with all that said, we're looking forward to this board meeting. We are looking forward to hearing your excellent questions, and I hope this presentation again provides some clarity. Before we go into the voting issues, though, I just want to reflect on some accomplishments over the last year. First of which is the water tank project. The water tank project is being facilitated by over $1 million grant that was applied for by community members, also volunteers. I'm in awe of the expert management of this project by both George and Jody Bruder. They volunteered countless hours navigating Byzantine California bureaucracy, and I think every community member owes them a debt of gratitude when this project is done. We also replaced the siding on our clubhouse, which is no small project, and now the woodpeckers or whatever they are can't continue to do damage on the outside. Importantly, we also brought our books into alignment with generally accepted accounting principles. I'm not going to explain where we were previously on this video, but the company required a complete rebuild of our books last year based on historical invoices and receipts. Obviously, that's not ideal, and it was not a cheap project. And we have now implemented a new accountability system for each and every penny that goes out of our account. So community members can rest assured that their funds are being used appropriately. Every dollar that is spent by this community has been pre-approved by at least 2 individuals, usually myself and the treasurer, or the VP and the treasurer. Moreover, our bookkeeper is a third set of eyes who expertly reviews each and every transaction and ensures everything is on the up and up. And if he sees something that seems a little odd, he will email me or whoever follows me or the accountant or the treasurer and ask. So because of these changes, I'm confident that now we could pass an audit. I could not have said that a year ago. We also upgraded our policies to comply with the insane amount of laws and regulations in California, many of which are listed in the fourth bullet here. Why is this important? It's important because it ensures that we're operating within the law of the land, and probably more importantly, it saves us from litigation. I can personally attest that since stepping into the role of president, I've talked to more lawyers than I ever want to talk to again in the future. And so bringing our policies into alignment, strict alignment with the law, is important, because if there's a gap in our policies between what our policy is and what the law is, I promise you there's people that are going to challenge those policies. And I don't even blame them for doing so. I would do the same thing, right? If I have something I want to do with my property, I have a policy. If there's a policy that doesn't align with my or my family's interests, I'm going to challenge it, right? And that's their right, and they've done so. So now what we've done is we've got our policies in line with the state. One of those policies is the water shutoff policy, which was no small feat. There were 19 accounts in our community that were not current. So now we're down to 4 accounts that are not current since we started this new water shutoff policy. We were down, so that's roughly like 12% of our community members were not paying or were behind on their bills, and now we're down to about 2% if the my simple math works. Also, we created a new SOP for the board, so whoever serves next after me and everyone else that's leaving this year can come in and read the policy and just pick up, or the SOP, and pick up there. Regarding where our rates are at currently, they're really quite low when you compare what is provided, which is road maintenance, water services, and clubhouse shared spaces, as well as fire mitigation activities through the funding of FireWise. And historically, there's been a hesitation to ask for a raise in rates, because of the strong feelings it evokes in the community. Listen, we're all human beings. Most of us, except maybe the 2 to 3% of the population with some kind of personality issue, we don't like making our friends and neighbors unhappy. I certainly don't. It's uncomfortable, it's not pleasant, and I really want to give a shout out to Dana Hartzell, the previous board president, for having the courage to ask our neighbors for a raise in rates a couple years ago. It was the first significant rate increase in quite some time, and it allowed us to get a lot of projects done over the last couple years, projects that we need to have done. In the most recent board meeting, I recall someone stating, "Hey, dues used to be $10. How could they be higher?" And I wish we could go back to that. I wish we could have kept them there. But what this board believes is that the low rates historically have led to deferred maintenance that can no longer be deferred if our water system is to remain viable into the future. I invite the community members to look at our capital improvement plan if you want a picture of the sheer volume of what needs to be done and the specific projects that need to be done. And I want to give a sincere thanks to our VP, Fred Schinkelberg, for bringing his unique experience and skill set to the task of putting this plan together in partnership with the community. It wasn't just him, putting pen to paper and saying, "Hey, this is what we're going to do." There was community input. There were several meetings where the community actively participated in not just discussing what projects needed to be done, but rank ordering them in terms of importance. All right, so there's a lot of good news. There's a lot of good things in the works, but many of the proposals this year are being made in anticipation of the challenges ahead. The first challenge I want to mention is that we need to find new, talented individuals to serve on the board. I'm mentioning this first because I think it's one of the most important pieces in ensuring that Chimakita Park remains a viable community. The board is currently charged with overseeing our finances, planning the capital improvement projects so that our homes have the water they need for everyday use and during any potential natural disaster such as a fire. If we don't have water, if our roads are in disrepair, all this amazing equity that people have in their houses ain't going to be there for too long. We have to have a good board this year we have a great board that with a lot of different experiences, a lot of different skill sets. Each of us have demanding jobs, and for several of us, it's time to pass the baton on to a new group of people. We need people with experience in construction and logistics, people who are organized, and people who play well with others. And I'm asking, in fact, I'm begging. I know it's not convenient to serve on the board, especially with people that have, a skill set that pulls them in other directions. It takes a lot. It takes a bit of time, but I promise it's a year or two of community service. It's not a life sentence. Everyone wants to make a difference in the world these days, and whether you're on the left or the right side of the political spectrum, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care. There's a lot to be unhappy about these days in our government, most of which we can't do anything about. And my invitation today is that while you may not be able to make a big difference on this grand scale that we're all so concerned about, serving on the board in your local community is an opportunity to serve your community, to make a real tangible difference. And it is a bit of a sacrifice. I'm not going to lie. It's going to take up a bit of your time. There are going to be people that aren't happy with the decisions you make. But at the end of the year, I'm hoping that, you can be proud that you made a difference where it matters in a real tangible way. The second challenge ahead is the additional compliance with state and local regulations. One of the biggest learning experiences for me in this role is realizing just how hard it is to get anything done in California, how many regulations there are. Our legal fees have increased and our compliance fees have increased significantly. There's increasing scrutiny on communities like ours. The handshake agreements and kind of getting things done under the table. It's not going to work anymore, and it puts us at a financial and a legal position of liability. Third, inflation has been and will continue to be a challenge, likely into the foreseeable future. All our vendors and contractors are increasing their rates year over year, and we haven't been. There was a community member that, with a lot of experience repairing sort of pipes and infrastructure and leaks, who was doing that sort of at a cut rate fee, not cut rate, but a lower fee. He's retired. He's not doing it anymore. So these simple repairs that didn't used to cost us so much, they're costing us more now, quite a bit more. Fourth, and very important, we have a water capacity issue. We're allowed to draw 26,000 gallons of water daily. Our license is for 26,000 gallons of water daily, and our license is from April to December. According to the State Water Resources Control Board, a division of drinking water, in their most recent feedback to us, they calculated that we're using 86,115 gallons per day over the last 6 years. All right, again, so we're allotted 26,000 gallons. We're taking 86,000 gallons roughly. Not just that, but we're only licensed to access water legally from April to December. And so the State Water Board has directed us to explore additional capacity to address these shortfalls. And we're doing that. We want to do that. There a couple board meetings ago, the board authorized me to reach out to San Jose Water Company to ask about addressing these shortfalls, but also to ask about hey, is there any interest in San Jose Water Company coming in and taking over our water system in total? Honestly, I think that is the best way ahead to ensure long-term viability of our water system. Just to be clear, I want people to know where I stand. I think that's what we should do. So I reached out to them, and there was a time when they wanted to take over, but as I talked to them, they don't want to take over our water system because they know, or they have an inkling of just how much money it is going to cost to bring this thing up to a reasonable state of repair. All right, so this brings us to the proposals membership will vote on this year at the annual meeting. I conceptualize these proposals as being grouped into two categories. In category one, there are those related to rate increases, and there are 3 proposals there. And in category 2, there are minor administrative changes to the bylaws that don't really affect anyone's daily life. With respect to the rate increase proposals, there's 3 of them, and we're going to vote on them individually. In fact, we're going to vote on all the proposals individually. You're not being asked to approve them all at once. The board is making these proposals because we feel that these changes are what will be required to keep our water system functioning into the future. There's nothing nefarious going on here. I'll go through each of these proposals individually. I invite individual members to reflect on these proposals, evaluate what works for your family and your budget, and vote in your interest. And with that kind of brings us to proposal number 1, which was to increase our monthly assessment to $272 per month. And I say was because after much discussion and reflection after the board meeting, the board has come to the consensus that we could have done a better job in communicating the rationale behind this plan, and it seems that the community needs a little more time to digest the why behind this proposed increase. And so for this reason, we agreed that we're going to postpone asking the community for this rate increase, and this will give future boards the opportunity to propose their own plan. Importantly, this proposal is already on the agenda, and we don't really have a mechanism to take it off the ballot for the annual meeting. We would have to call a special board meeting and all kinds of other sort of parliamentary stuff. So it's going to stay on the annual meeting for a vote, but we're going to encourage community members to vote no on this increased monthly assessment, and instead to consider voting yes on proposals number 2 and proposals number 3. Proposal number 2 is a time-limited 1-year assessment tied to specific projects the community needs to get done in a short period. And I'll explain that here in the coming slides. And proposal number 3 is a logical, fair approach to ensuring our rates stay in line with the rise in costs of goods and services in the country. And I'll explain a little bit more as we go along. But first, let me explain why the board was asking community members to commit to the fee increase in Proposal 1, because this should not be the last time that you hear about it. Why we were asking this, knowing that people would likely be upset. Basically, the community needs adequate reserves to serve as collateral for loans to rebuild or replace key infrastructure. We currently don't have that, and we were seeking to increase from $250,000 reserve to a $500,000 reserve in 3 years. A good example of key infrastructure that might need to be replaced is the water treatment plant. So a little background, over the past year, we've looked at ensuring all our key infrastructure is actually insured against natural disaster. As we've done that, we've had some really big surprises. Many of our key infrastructure was not insured at all. And in fact, our water treatment plant is only insured for $100,000. And we're not going to be able to insure it for more due to a lack of compliance with state and local building codes. It's an old building. And that's a problem because replacing the water treatment plant would cost at least $1.5 million. And honestly, given what I've seen with the water tank project, it probably costs a lot more than that. So if something were to happen right now, all of which is within the realm of possibility, a tree falls on the water treatment plant, even though we've done tree work around it, an earthquake, a flood, a mudslide, we'd be out of luck. And we'd have to raise that money very, very quickly in a time-constrained way, and it would cost members a lot in a very short period of time. So rather than waiting for an emergency, we were seeking to raise dues over a period of 3 years to reach $500,000, which is what we would have needed, or which is what we will need to replace a piece of key infrastructure like the water treatment plant. And while we're not going to ask the community to commit to doing this now, we do think this is vital to have adequate reserves to replace key infrastructure in the future. And we encourage future boards to come up with a plan to address our current reserve shortfalls in the coming years. How they do that and over what period of time they stretch that over, that will be up to them. And given the recent discussions with community members, I mean, maybe they want to be involved and maybe they want to have input into the plan to make sure it's not burdensome. But in my estimation and in the estimation of many people that have worked really hard for the community, um, this needs to be done. So good luck to future boards as they contemplate that plan. All right, proposal number 2, which again I'm going to emphasize is a separate proposal. You can vote yes or no against it. That's a $50 special assessment for only 1 year. Why are we asking this? There's some essential infrastructure maintenance, repairs, and upgrades that need to happen. So without proper funding, our aging infrastructure can lead to service disruptions, water quality issues, and special assessments ensure that necessary improvements are made without placing an excessive financial burden on individual members. The projects listed here can't be funded from the water tank grant. Trust me, the managers of that project have done everything in their power to fold in costs for that project, associated with that project. But we're strictly adhering to the state guidance and regulation on that project. And the board's recommending that we actually don't use our reserves for these projects, right? Those reserves are for the kind of aforementioned, catastrophic event, to a water tank or to or to something else, right? We recommend that we retain our reserves for real big emergencies. That said, these projects do need to be done. For example, there needs to be a security fence required by the state around the new water tank that's going to be erected. We have to replace the water treatment plant siding to ensure that we're in compliance with what our insurance company wants. We need water plant lighting to ensure compliance and, again, protection by the insurance company. We need a cargo box to store our spare parts that we bought over the past couple of years. Our insurance company wants those parts to be stored on site, not somewhere else. We need a project manager to manage all our capital improvement projects. Again, George and Jody have done amazing work. David Shimon's doing amazing work managing different projects around the park. But some of these bigger projects are going to require a lot of time and attention, and it's not feasible to ask for a board member to manage all these things. And then also there's Firewise projects. Like, we want to do dumpster day. We would like to do dumpster day. And a special assessment would help fund that particular project. So this brings us to our third and final proposal regarding rate increases. This is an amendment to our bylaws. And before I get into it, as we talk about these amendments to the bylaws, if you see anything highlighted in yellow, that is an addition to the bylaws. If you see anything that's X'd out, that has a line through it, that is something being removed from our bylaws. So here you see the addition will be to automatically adjust the percentage of the annual assessment to match the cost of living as published by the Social Security Administration in February of each year. This is, as in my opinion, and it is my personal opinion, that this is the most important proposal this year. If the other proposals related to rate increases, if they don't work for you, if they don't work for your family, then of course it's your right to vote no on them. But I respectfully ask that you consider this particular one. If the other ones don't work, please consider this one. I think it's the most important. It'll put us on a viable path financially for the future. It will take us longer to get there to where than if we just approved all three of them right now. But in my heart, I believe it will put us on a viable path to viability. Not just that, it'll provide financial stability and predictability for the members. Like, you'll know kind of what to expect each year, and it'll help the organization plan a little bit better for the future. It'll help us keep pace with inflation to match the rising costs for services, maintenance, labor, and infrastructure. And it'll just be efficient, instead of a bunch of infrequent changes where the board has to ask for a massive jump, which is not comfortable for the board. We don't like it, and it's not good for the community members either, right? People don't like to be surprised about their budget. So if there is a predictable way each year to know it's okay, next year inflation's been about 3%. It's probably gonna be about 3% increase this year. It helps for both planning for you and the organization. Proposal number 4 is to change the bylaws to allow us to use the acronym CPMWC in our official communications. Very simple, just enhances clarity, consistency, and efficiency in our official documentation. It reduces ambiguity in our communications. And then also, there's like a legal aspect to it, apparently. Like, for example, if we have a contract with somebody and we write CPMWC, and CPMWC isn't actually in our bylaws, someone in theory could challenge it. In my opinion, this is not a big change, and I encourage every member to vote yes. All right, proposal number 5 is bylaw change to Article 2, Section 2.6. And this comes from our annual review with our CPA, who is also an attorney. She recommended that we use this specific language in our bylaws because past language was too vague. So this added verbiage here in yellow makes clear what we use our monthly and special assessments for, which is to increase reserves, to address catastrophic events, and any projects required to maintain or improve water services, roads, etc. Without this language, in theory, people may be able to argue like, I'm not paying for that, it's not in the bylaws. I don't think that's likely, but again, we pay people to give us advice, experts to give us advice, and we follow it because this is what they're paid to do. I don't think this is a significant change, but I do invite any questions y'all have at the annual meeting about this specific bylaw change. All right, proposal number 6 adds the verbiage and any adjustments to Article 2, Section 2.6.1 of the bylaws. And this proposed bylaw change is all about ensuring the fees charged by the community are authorized specifically by the bylaws. Right now, we have assessments, which are our monthly fees. These are currently authorized by the bylaws. We also charge liens, late fees, and special assessments, which aren't specifically in there. Those are voted on in a separate document by the board of directors. And we want to make sure that the bylaw specifically reflects authorization for us to do so. And that is where the language, any adjustments, come in. I understand that people may have questions on this one. I invite you to ask those at the annual board meeting. It's a really minor change. There's nothing nefarious about it. It's just authorizing us to charge to do the things that we're already doing, which is impose liens in the rare event where that's required, to charge late fees, and also to ask for the community for special assessments. All right, so proposal number 7, it's a change to the bylaws of Article 3, Section 3.2.1, and there's 2 parts. The first part, and you can read the yellow highlights there, I'm not going to read it to you, but all that does is it gives us, in the bylaws, permission to email notices. And I want to be absolutely clear because apparently it hasn't been. It is within your right, and the board is happy to email you physical notices. The only reason why we prefer not to is it costs more money to do so, both in terms of the cost of the bookkeeper to do it, but also the mailing, etc. We just want to have the authority to email notices. 45 people in the community have elected to have physical copies sent to their house. Absolutely fine with that. And you can do so too. Just reach out to our bookkeeper. The other piece is just to be in line with state law or state regulations, and it changes. We have it states that we now have 4 days to notify the community in advance of a meeting. There's been some question in the past. Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 10? State regulation says 4, so we're just going to change it to 4. All right, proposal number 8 relates to what has been a legal and contentious issue over the past, 12 to 24 months, and that kind of relates to ADUs. Our current bylaws there, as you see, we're striking, or the change will be to Article 5, Section 5.2 of the bylaws, and that section restricts people from building ADUs. Okay, so if we don't have enough water, why would we allow people to build ADUs, or why would we pull that out of our bylaws? Basically, it doesn't comply with state law. Okay, there's been a lot of regulations. Many of you have read about it, passed recently at the state level, that mandate ADUs should be allowed to be built. Okay, um, and so our authority does not allow us to deny ADUs. It is the county's jurisdiction to approve or deny ADUs. And if in our bylaws we say, oh, you can't build an ADU, well, and we deny that, we get sued for this. Trust me, I talked to a lot of lawyers over the last 24 months, because it's not in alignment. We can get sued for it because it's not in alignment with state laws, and therefore it has to be stricken from the bylaws. If we're an HOA, then we could deny it apparently, but we're not an HOA, we're a mutual water company. And then there are very valid concerns about water capacity issues. And for those people concerned with that, what I will say is the permitting process for ADUs with the county requires the mutual water company, us, to provide what's called a will serve letter, saying that we will provide them water service. Currently, we recently made a policy that where we're not providing will serve letters for pools, for hot tubs, for different things, because we exceed capacity and usage. But our role isn't to deny the project. Our role is to provide the will serve letter, which right now we can't do because of water and storage capacity issues. And just to be clear, where I stand, I'm more of kind of a libertarian type. Like, I don't like the idea of telling people what they can and cannot do on their property. I don't want any part of that. And so because of that, we're actively searching for additional water sources to meet our capacity needs. And then once we do that, say if San Jose Water Company did take over our system, or we have a way to augment our capacity, then we will have to provide the will serve letter as well, so people can have the freedom to do on their property what they should be able to do, what they want to do. So again, we're removing this from the bylaws because it does not comply with state law. For those concerned about water, the capacity to provide water to these homes, those projects probably still aren't going to be built because we can't provide the will serve letter because of capacity issues. So that's one piece. And then, my own personal opinion is that the community needs to actively continue to search for additional capacity so that we can provide those letters so that people can do what they want on their properties. And then also just to be able to meet the demand we have right now, because right now, as I said earlier, we're above capacity. All right, and so this slide is just some additional information to that last slide. It talks about, it provides some background. So number one, the link there is to a response from a lawyer. So what exactly is our existing water rights? And the answer, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. You can read it yourself. But basically, you see we're about $26,000, 26,000 gallons a day during the season of use. Okay. And importantly, it says this right does not allow for water diversion during the January through March. So we have a capacity issue, and that directly affects the will serve letter, like why we have a policy with that currently, at least. We can't provide the will serve letter. And then down here, current usage. This is from the State Water Resource Control Board and our 2024 sanitary survey findings. And it says a public water system like ours must have source capacity to meet the system's maximum day demand at all times. Okay, so we are actively searching for ways to do that. Again, whether it's San Jose Water Company, whether it's finding additional capacity elsewhere, we're looking into it. And there's a lot of just hours and hours and hours of discussion and background and research by the board into additional source capacity. Importantly, there though, it says what our current capacity is, and where is that at? It's right there, that last sentence. It says 86,115 gallons per day over the past 6 years, and obviously that's very clearly in excess of what we're allowed to take. And there's a lot of people that argue like, oh, we should hide this fact. We can't. They know, the water survey, the water board knows about it. It's becoming an increasing problem. It's garnering increased attention, not the least of which because of the continued droughts, because of continued climate change. The state is very interested in who's using what and are they allowed to use it. And yeah, I just don't think business as usual is going to be able to continue in this environment with that level of attention. All right, proposal number 9 to the bylaws. It's to remove the verbiage "and employees" from Article 8, Section 8.1.5. Very simple change. It says officers and agents. Apparently, we don't have employees. Just personally, I'm not an HR person. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know why that matters, but it does matter. We do not have employees. We have like contractors. So hence that change. Not a big deal. I recommend a yay vote for it. All right, so Proposal 10, it's a revised bylaw change to Article 9, Section 9.1.3.2 to reflect the water service shutoff policy. You can see the added verbiage there. It's to bring our bylaws into alignment with state regulation. So we add 120 days as outlined in the water shutoff policy. Excuse me. And also the second sentence is to be in alignment with the already approved water shutoff policy. And again, that water shutoff policy has been highly effective, bringing us down from approximately 14 or 12% of people either not paying or being significantly behind on their dues to 2%. And that's huge for our financial position. All right, so proposal number 11, it's a revised bylaw change to Article 9, Section 9.1.10. Current article says we are going to inspect septic tanks. The board is not going to inspect septic tanks. So we could report septic tanks, but I don't expect or anticipate this. We're not an HOA or the county. We don't have a right to inspect our neighbor's policy, so hence we're going to change that. All right, so proposal number 12, that's a revised bylaw change to Article 10, Section 10.1.3. Basically, our old law said that the treasurer could be selected from the community and not a board member. In California, the treasurer of a board of directors must be a board member. This requirement was established by California Civil Code and applies to all associations. There are some specific codes I could read, 5500 and 5501, and they both mandate that the board review financial records monthly and that the treasurer, as a board member, be involved in that review. So no more treasurers that are not board members. The board member needs the treasurer has to be a board member, and so if there's anybody out there with specific expertise in budgeting and accounting, I invite you to join the board this year, please. All right, so proposal number 13, it's the revised bylaw Article 11, Section 11.2. Very simple. It allows us to email community members notification of the annual meeting. We currently we have 45 households that want to receive physical copies. Please, that's your right. Let the bookkeeper know, and we're happy to send you physical copies. But this amendment just clarifies our ability to send an email with notification of the annual meeting. So, in summary, I hope that this presentation added some clarity around some of the questions that may come up in the coming board meeting. I invite you to click on the links which have been available in past communications, but just for clarity's sake, that you have them again now. Click on those links and look at the capital improvement plan, look at the budget, see the work that we have ahead of ourselves as a community, and what it's going to cost to maintain this water system and this amazing community of ours. Review these documents, review this presentation again if you want, and bring your questions, man. There's a lot of smart people in this community, and you're going to have good questions about what's being proposed and why. And at the end of the day, it's your choice, right? If you don't like none of this is personal. It's just the numbers. It's a matter of numbers, right? Like there's certain things we have to purchase, and this is the board's proposed way of paying for it. It's not personal at all. And so bring your good questions. In the past, I've been really impressed with how the community has navigated sort of difficult conversations at the annual meeting. And it's really my hope that we can navigate this in a mature, neighborly way